Hello, folks. Well, welcome to the newest episode of Gen Z Perspective. I am your host, and today we are going to look at the election results from 2025 and break it down to how it was a bad night for the Republican Party, how it was a great night for the Democrat Party. Um, bear with me here. I'm a little bit late. I realize I'm a little late to cover this. Go figure. I'm like 2 days past the when the election happened. But I'm still getting the ball rolling with this channel. Bear in mind, with it being a small channel, we're gonna have little kinks in the production value here. I mean, who does it? Every channel on here on YouTube was small at one point. But anyways, um, if you like the content, please consider subscribing to the channel for the latest episodes, and let's get into it. I want to first talk about Virginia as they were the first state to close for the night, and it was clear as day that Spanberger was the favorite. A lot of polling had her about 5 points ahead. The more generous polls for her, she had a 10-point lead over Sears. And while Sears, it would have been impossible for Sears to win. It would have took a miracle to get her to win. Um, but still, it wasn't impossible. Most people were, trying to see the margin that Spanberg would win by, and yeah, she blew the expectations out of the water. She ended up winning by 15 over Sears, and a lot of the reason was of Northern Virginia was being heavily enthused to turn out for Spanberger because a lot of Northern Virginia vote or works for the federal government. And right now, if you haven't been paying attention to the news, the federal government is shut down. So these people are angry, and Northern Virginia itself is heavily liberal or Democrat. So that gives them one more excuse to stick it to the orange man. You know that's their logic. Um, So I don't want to get stuck on that race too much because there's other races that were involved. The lieutenant governor, Ghazal Hashimi, the first Muslim woman to be elected in Virginia as Virginia lieutenant governor, she won by 11 over John Reed. And most polling had her winning by like 4 points over Reed. Um, but still, she blew expectations out of the water. Now, the most shocking result was Jay Jones winning by 6 over the incumbent Jason Miyares. And the reason it's so shocking is because, if you haven't been paying attention to news, he was um, basically busted for texting, I guess, a fellow colleague. I don't know who the colleague is, but a fellow colleague that he wishes death upon the Republican House Speaker's children's. Um, yeah, and now he's the highest rated police officer. Along with other things he said. You know, and Miaras was the incumbent here, and unfortunately he couldn't get enough ticket splitting from the top of the ticket, which is Sears, to help overcome that deficit. So he ended up losing his seat. Now, why the Republicans lost this race? Well, like I said, it didn't have a good message about the state of the economy because most people still are feeling the effects of the inflation with the economy. That was one of the biggest issues with this election. Also, Spanberger had a 10-1 spending advantage over Earl Sears as well, and you can pretty much blame that on Sears not being able to get a good fundraising campaign going. And plus, the Republican Party was not enthused to come out for Earl Sears because she had a history of being a never Trumper. And you can say that about a lot of politicians now that serve President Trump, but this was like more recent, like a couple years ago. And while she tried to distance herself from those comments, it ended up backfiring on her. Um, and also Northern Virginia, and, they were a lot more enthused, and she didn't get the numbers that she needed to beat Spanberger like Youngkin did in 21. Plus, unlike Youngkin, he was able to exploit the education issue. And 21, 25, education was a big issue like it was back then. So that's another big reason as well. And unfortunately, in Virginia, you gotta, as a Republican, you gotta stop the bleeding, and Northern Virginia do okay in the Richmond area and the Hampton Roads area, the Tidewater area of Virginia. Those are the three population areas of Virginia. Um, Other than that, it's the Republicans, they got to do some homework on candidate quality because they didn't put up their best candidate that they could have. And unfortunately, per the Virginia Constitution, they couldn't run Glenn Youngkin again. Now there's a chance for Glenn Youngkin to come back in 2029 to run as a governor, but not this time around. So that was one of the biggest misconceptions about it. It's like, well, why didn't Glenn Youngkin run again? Well, he's term limited, and Virginia is the only state that only allows you to only run for one term. That's it. So, anyways, let's move on from Virginia and go on to New Jersey. Now, on to New Jersey. New Jersey, they only had a governor's race to vote on, and Phil Murphy was term limited, so he's out the door. And here comes Mickey Sherrill, the Democrat nominee. Um, she served in Congress. Now she's running for governor, going up against Jack Ciattarelli, and Jack Ciattarelli was the nominee because he ended up losing New Jersey by 3 to Phil Murphy in 2021, and the Republicans thought, well, maybe this time around he can win the governorship because New Jersey swung about 10 points to the right and last year for president. So, you think, okay, maybe he can win. Yeah, he ended up getting crushed by Mickey Sherrill. And despite Mickey Sherrill having some controversies involving stock trading and being part of the U.S. Navy Academy, getting kicked out of that, she ended up winning her race by 13. Now, unlike Virginia, I think this is more of messaging and timing of everything with New Jersey. Um, that's all I gotta say with that. And let's move on to New York. Now, in the New York City mayor's race, you had a Democrat nominee, Zoran Mondani, an independent challenger, Andrew Cuomo, and a Republican, Curtis Sliwa. Um, they were all running for to be the New York City mayor. Um, Cuomo ran as an independent after losing the Democrat nomination to Mamdani. So he ran as an independent along with Eric Adams. Eric Adams ended up dropping out to help Cuomo out. Um, and while Sliwa was the Republican, I'm willing to bet that Earl Sears had a better chance of winning the governorship in Virginia than Sliwa did as being New York City mayor. It's just it is what it is. At least Virginia is a little bit more Republican than New York City itself. That's just the trends. But anyways, Mamdani, being the outspoken socialist, ended up winning the New York City mayor's race by 9 over Andrew Cuomo. Now, Andrew Cuomo, of course, had some scandals back when he was the governor of New York, so his reputation is still not repaired. So, but on New York City, you're gonna have to experience what socialism is in the next 4 years, and it may inadvertently cause some races in New York, in the state level to flip to the Republican or even the federal level because of Mamdani. But we'll see how it plays out. So there were some other races that happened last night, other than these big three, such as the Minneapolis mayor's race and Pennsylvania Supreme Court races. But the last uh, election that I wanted to talk about or touch on is the California Prop 50 vote. In case you don't know, California right now was district based off of a nonpartisan redistricting commission. It was an independent commission. Prop 50, if it passed, would temporarily suspend it to 2031. As that's what the word was. So, and then it would leave it up to the state legislature to redraw the maps. It as of recording this, the final results is not in because California counts their votes so slow that probably my pet tortoise could count the votes faster than California can. And if you don't know anything about tortoises, they kind of move slow and steady. Um, so it's going to pass um, by like 25 points, and this was like 75% of voting. That's why it's not up on the screen because the margin is not final. And so now it's going to be left up to the state legislature of California, which is a supermajority Democrat, to redraw the lines. And as you can see on the screen, the people that voted for Prop 50 said that it by 82% said that they did it to counteract other states that redrew their maps, per CPS. And in case you don't know, Texas had a special session and redrew their maps and drew out 5 Democrat seats in favor of Republicans. And other states are doing it as well, such as Missouri and such as North Carolina. Those are the states that's confirmed to have done it already. And there's other states involved that's talking about doing it, such as Florida, Ohio, Indiana, and Kansas. Those states are talking about doing it. Um, Most likely, some will get it done anyways, and others maybe not. But that wraps up the 2025 or election moratorium or post results. Um, if you like the content, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. It'll go a long way to show your appreciation for the content. I know, we don't have the sharpest, graphics or the sharpest editing, and you know, I'm just a guy on my laptop, and a microphone. So, you know, just please give me a little bit of slack here. Uh, but anyways, like I said, if you like the content, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and I will see you next time.